What's up, guys? I just got done playing in the GOAT format Grand Prix held in Seattle. Huge shout out to JDZ for hosting and organizing and running the event. I thought it was a great event. It went pretty smoothly. I think it maxed out at 64 players, and I think we reached the cap, so I think it was 64. You know, he's been wanting to run one of those tournaments for quite some time, and it finally happened, so really glad that we had a great turnout and that everything went smoothly. I did play in the main event, playing my favorite Reasoning Gate Turbo deck. Unfortunately, scrubbed out. I think I dropped when I was like 3-3. Really no complaints about how I played. Just had some pretty bad luck, but no major misplays, but that's what you get when you're playing like a casino deck like this, like Reasoning Gate Turbo. So it is what it is. I had some pretty bad luck in the middle. I think when I was like 3-1 playing round 5, I think I had a BLS on the bottom of the deck with only 2 cards left in deck, and I could summon it, but I couldn't Dimension Fusion because I had to banish Crane for BLS, and the mandatory draw would deck me out. And then I also had a DMOC on the bottom of the deck in the same match, so some bad luck, but it is what it is when you're playing an RNG deck like this. But as you can see, I played in a side event. So for those who like scrubbed out early, they had a GOAT format and Edison format side event, just your standard 8-man pod, single elimination, 3 rounds. And for the GOAT format side event, the prize was JDZ's World Championship GOAT format playmat from last year. And you can see I got him to sign it, which is pretty sick. But this is, I think, JD's old mat, and thanks, shout out to him for donating it as prize support. But this is actually a really big deal to me because it's become a running joke or a meme. I think before this I've played in like 8 side event pods and not won any of them. Last week at Nats I came really close in the finals, 1-1, but I lost in time, and finally I was able to break the curse and finally win a fucking side event. So with that, I'll get into the deck profile. I'll show the main and the side, and then I'll kind of talk about the side event a little bit. So jumping into it, we have the Chaos monsters. We have the BLS Triple Sork. I like Triple Sork just because of my higher monster count. So I'm playing like a little bit less of a turbo build than some people might be used to, and I really need to hard draw this Sork because there's going to be less milling going on with the higher monster count, so you're like less likely to get them in the grave. For the lights, we have Zaborg and Double Crane. I still really like Zaborg. It's so great when you can summon this, like you get a Crane off of Monster Gate or Reasoning, get your +1, and then get your +1 off of Zaborg as well. And then if you just hit this normally off of Reasoning or Monster Gate, it's not the best, obviously, but it's still a 24 beater, which is important because 24 plus 28 plus 28 is 8k exactly, and that combination of numbers does come up quite a bit for this deck. For the darks, we're playing obviously DMOC, Jinzo, and Fusiliers is optional for sure. I like to play this deck to resolve Dimension Fusion or multiple times, and potentially drop multiple Chaos monsters. So having the extra dark in the lineup just helps with that. Obviously 7, you can make King Dragoon, or you can make Last Warrior. I actually had in round one mirror match, I had Last Warrior made against me first turn, which is normally really good against this deck. Luckily I did have the Snatch Steal as an out. But other than that, it's just like a 28 beater that you can normal summon if you need to tribute off of Monster Gate. And it's pretty tricky because if you hit DMOC of a Monster Gate Reasoning, it doesn't hit the graveyard, so you can't banish it for the Chaos monsters. So the only one that consistently hits the graveyard is the Chaos monsters, which you obviously can't summon off Dimension Fusion, and Jinzo. So I like having this other dark that can actually hit the graveyard. And then finally, Sinister Serpent. If you guys follow my channel, you know I love this card in this deck. It actually came up, it was, pretty crucial in the side event, which I'll talk about in a second. But I know, this card confuses a lot of people. It doesn't really make sense in a Reasoning Gate deck. The reason I'm playing this is because It helps a little bit with Delinquent Duo, first of all. And it's also just a recurring resource that you can keep using for your monster gates, your metas, your graceful, your lightning vortex, stuff like that. Or it's just a card you can keep setting. For example, if your opponent makes Last Warrior, like happened to me in this tournament, you can literally just keep setting this card. They can't summon cards, and you just keep blocking until you finally draw an out. That's happened to me in past tournaments. And then the last thing I want to say about this is it's only really game breaking to hit this if this is specifically the monster in the deck right before DMOC and you're using Monster Gate. If you're using Reasoning, often it's actually better because a lot of people will call 8 and then you can get this card on the field. But if you Monster Gate in this situation and you just hit this instead of, you know, the DMOC that you would have hit if you weren't running this, then that's the only situation where it's really game breaking. Otherwise, you have ways to convert this with, again, meta, Monster Gate, and you can even just tribute for Jinzo or Zaborg. So that's the monster lineup. For the spell lineup, obviously you get your triple Dimension Fusion. I still like triple. You end up milling them. You really need to be able to just hard draw it or add it back with DMOC, but we're on the triple. Hold on here, sorry. Let's see. We are on the triple Reasoning. Obviously, this is Reasoning Gate Turbo with a triple Monster Gate. Nothing really to explain here. I'm still on triple Scapegoat. Really good, obviously, for your Monster Gates and your metas. I'm on double Metamorphosis. I'm not on 3. I was bricking too much on 3, and 2 is like you see it enough and when you need it. And you really just want this to make, you know, 1,000 Eyes early on, or to loop your DMOC with the DMOC Dimension Fusion loop. That's why it's also there. And it also gets a Light in the Dark in the graveyard. For example, if you hit a Crane and then you make Dark Fire Dragon, and then you can tribute the Dark Fire Dragon for Jinzo or Zaborg, which actually came up today in tournament. I did do that exact play. Next up, we got double Upstart. I still really like Upstart. Just too often this gets you into your Pot or your Graceful or your Scapegoat that you need to start off the turn with. And then for the one-ofs, you got Pot, Graceful. Nothing really needs to be said here, but I think Graceful, like this is one of the best decks for Graceful just because you set up for your Light and Dark and Dimension Fusion play. Heavy Trunade. I'm just playing one Trunade instead of 2 or instead of 3. I brick way too much on it, and again, this build is not super turbo. Adding the Serpent and the extra monster kind of slows the deck down a little bit, and I really have not found myself needing more than one with my play style. Other one-ofs, we got Pre-Mat, Snatch, Brain, Monster Reincarnation, Lightning Vortex. First 4 pretty staple on Reasoning Gate. This is pretty staple too. I was originally putting this on the side and had Torrential Tribute in the main instead. My friend convinced me to put this in last second. I put it back in just because this punishes bad players and it can also get a Light or Dark in the graveyard, which is important. And obviously I'm playing Sinister game 1, so there's that. And then for traps, I'm running Triple Jar and Call. Again, might look weird with the monster lineup, but I still like Jar. This card punishes bad players who, you know, aren't aware of it, and MST or Dust Tornado this. And I still like having the Triple Jar to kind of have that sort of semi-turbo aspect. And then Call is just super good in this deck. Bringing back Crane or Jinzo or DMOC is just really important to have. As for the side is actually very spicy, and I'll explain the side strats when I talk about the side event. But the side, starting off with double Spell Canceller. You know, I knew going to this event, like some people are probably going to be playing Reasoning Gate because it's kind of been gaining a little bit of popularity recently. And I'm like, I don't want to lose to my own deck in the mirror match. So I just put in double Spell Canceller. And it came in handy because I played the mirror round 1. I was able to get out Spell Canceller. It did work. It didn't straight up win on the spot because he was smart enough to put in traps and back row. But it did work. But game 3, it actually won me the game because what I did was I hit a Spell Canceller, I think off of Monster Gate or Reasoning, and then I tributed it for Jinzo, shutting off his back row, and then I activated Pre-Mat to bring it back, which is like, once you have Spell Canceller Jinzo, like it's very hard to lose from that position, especially if your opponent doesn't have any lights or darks in the grave. So there's 2 of that. What else? What else was I gonna say about that? No, that's pretty much all I had to say about that. And then I'll explain this later, but 2 Vampire Lord. I'm on 2 BrainCon in the side, so that's a total of 3 in the 55. I'll explain it more. Here's a second Trunade. This is mostly, honestly, I just bring this in. Oh, actually, I bring this in for chaos because I switch up the strat. I'll explain in a bit, and also for burn decks because they have all the floodgates, swords, and mystic walk. This is just for time, which I never went into today because this is like a pretty fast deck. I pretty much finished all my games like with quite some time left to spare, but it's also against burn, obviously. And then the traps: ring, compulse, torrential, 2 Sakuretsus, and mirror. So compulse is just in there for honestly the mirror, like if I think they're gonna make Last Warrior or Spell Canceller. But it's also in there for Thousand Eyes against control. I mean, these are pretty staple. And then 2 Sakuretsus because this deck has the hardest time playing against warriors and aggro, so this is for aggro, and I'll explain the side strat right now, actually. So let's see. Quick recap of the pod. Round 1, I played against Turbo. He just couldn't get his engine going, and I 2-0'd. Round 2, I played against another Turbo, but I think they were kind of a little bit less experienced because they were calling some wrong calls for reasoning and didn't know what some cards did, so that was straightforward. But round 3 in the finals, I had to play against Moxie's, which if you follow GOAT format, you know Moxie's is a very well-known warrior player. Huge shout out to him. I've been following him for quite some time, and it was really nice to, finally meet him in person. Really nice guy. But when I heard I was playing against Moxie's, I was like, God damn it. The finals, Warriors is literally this deck's hardest matchup, and he's like one of the best warrior players. And I was like, God damn it. As long as I can get to game 3, I'll be, satisfied. And as long as I can use some of my side strat and, see some of them, I'll be just satisfied with that. But luckily we pulled out. First, let me tell you the side strat against Turbo. So against Turbo, which is obviously a fast deck, I can't really afford to play this more mid-range resource game with the Sinister and the Fusilier and trying to resolve multiple dimension fusions. So what I end up doing is I take this out, I take this out, and leave these in, and I take out probably 1 sword because we're going faster. And I took out a couple other things, but I basically just put in something like this, and maybe even brain control, maybe even 2 brain control. It really depends what I see them side in, but a lot of Chaos will bring in King Tiger or Kaiku, and sometimes they'll have both Kaiku and King Tiger on the field, and brain control is just such a clean out to that because you just steal the Kaiku, attack the King Tiger, banish 2. So I'll usually put in 1 to 2 brain control, especially going second, because a lot of people, if they know this deck, they know that you have to go aggro against it really fast to get you under 2,000 life. So they're way more likely to just leave monsters face up if they're experienced against this deck. And, you can take spies and crash spies with it too. So BrainCon is really good, and obviously you can bait them into dropping a Sork and then just take the Sork and banish. So it's never really bad, but you do have to see what your opponent is siding in against you. But like I said, against Turbo, which is a fast deck, I like to slim down the monster count and go a lot more Turbo. And then for the the warrior matchup. So that was really tough. It was really tough. I went to game 3, got down to simplified states where he basically was just top decking. I was just beating him down with the Chaos Sorcerer. But game 2 and 3, my side strat really came in clutch. I'll show you what it is. So against Warriors, I bring in, not really that. I bring in these. So against Warriors, I bring in a lot of cards, 9 cards. Maybe I'll bring in Torrential, it depends, but I'm bringing in double BrainCon because I think it's just so good against aggro. A lot of people are just, summoning Kaiku and summoning King Tiger and thinking that that's gonna fuck you over. So we bring in the BrainCon because you can easily go 2 for 1 with that card, and obviously synergizes with your tribute monsters, which are right here, and your monster gate and whatnot. And this whole thing works together, but basically I'm bringing in double Vampire Lord because this is super good against Warriors. If you don't know what it does, if it's destroyed by your opponent's card effect, it'll come back in your standby phase next turn. It's a 2000 attacker, level 5, dark. So really like Torrential, Mirror Force, Ring, Exiled Force, Sakuretsu, those are all dead against this card. And really the only clean out to a Vampire Lord is, I don't know, like it's literally two outs to it in Warriors. It's DD Warrior Lady, which is like crash or set and wait for you to attack it, or crash a pumped up Blade Knight, which is all right. So basically I'm trying to turbo this out as fast as possible and protect it with Sakuretsu and Mirror so that they can't crash their DD Warrior Lady or their Blade Knight. And what I side out, okay, what I side out is more important than what I side in, because I usually side out, oh, by the way, usually jars come out game 2, at least 1 or 2, because I don't want to be too behind. But what I side out is, I side out basically the whole Dimension Fusion Chaos package. So I side out like Monster Reincarnation, 2 Dimension Fusions. I side out, keep that at like 2 Sorks. And I think I might even side out like True Nade or some shit. Let's see here. I think sometimes I side out True Nade. I don't quite remember. I might side out Vortex. No, I kept that in. But something like this, where I'm taking out a lot of the Dimension Fusion package. I think I take this one out too. Something like that. But I basically cut out the Dimension Fusion package because it's next to impossible to resolve it against Warriors. Just have so many layers of defense. Like, not only do you need a Light in the Dark in the grave, you need them to not have a Kaiku on the field so you can summon this, and then you need them to not have a fucking Solemn Judgment when you try to Dimension Fusion. So not only is it hard to get Lights and Darks in the grave in the first place, because if they're good, they'll be judgmenting your reasoning and your monster gates, but then they're playing probably triple Kaiku anyway, so you can't even summon this card. And then if you finally do get this far, they definitely have Judgment to stop that. So I basically side out this some of the combo package and try to just play a game of my monsters are better than yours. So most people don't call 5, and if I get this out early and I just start beating them down, basically all their traps are dead against this card. Even Solemn Judgment, even if you Solemn Judgment this card, it will come back. So I do that, and I simplify the game state with the Sakuretsus and Mirror Forces. These came in clutch because if you can start whittling down your opponent's monsters, especially in Warrior that has a relatively low monster count, that's pretty huge. And if you can just brain control their Wangu or their Kaiku, attack them directly, you know, if they use Sakuretsu, then fine. But then main phase 2, you tribute for Vampire Lord. If they Judgment this, it's coming back. So that's basically the side strat there. And oh man, I just mixed everything up, didn't I? And yeah, so that's pretty much it. The Serpent came in clutch multiple times in that side event. I used it with Graceful. I used it, I got it back and I pitched it for Lightning Vortex. And even just setting this over and over, like it's really good to set because your opponent isn't going to leave in Nobleman of Crossout against this deck. They're always going to take that out. So you can just keep setting it and blocking things, which is really good against Warriors that want that simplified game state. And if your opponent starts to overextend by summoning, you know, 2 monsters and attacking with 2 monsters, then you can Mirror Force, or if you Torrential, you put this in. Like, if you have this like this, it's really tempting for your opponent to, like, say they already have a Kaiku and they want to summon another monster just so they can attack this and banish this with the Kaiku, or attack this and get in direct with the Don Zalug. So that's when you punish them. And you're trying to just get these small advantages over the Warriors by going, you know, +1, and then just beat them down with Vampire Lord and your other big monsters, which are probably going to go 1-for-1 with Sakuretsus and whatnot. But that was it. That was it. Had a lot of fun. Again, huge shout out to JZ. Got to see a lot of people that I haven't seen in a long time. And thanks for everyone who came out and played. And thanks for watching.